Hello, ladies and gents, boys and girls, people of all ages, sexualities, and identities, and welcome back to another film review. And today's film review is none other than Popeye the Sailor Man. Yes, that's right, we moved on to watching Popeye this morning. We've been watching over the last couple of days, but finally this morning we managed to finish the whole film. So, what is the film Popeye about? Well, it's about Popeye the Sailor Man, for anyone who already knows the comics and the cartoons and such. But let's get into the plot of this film specifically. Popeye comes to the shore and docks in a port in a very small town. However, when Popeye gets to this town, he realizes he's very unwelcome and no one seems to give him the time of day. No one except an old innkeeper's wife. She rents him a room for a little while and Popeye becomes very close with her daughter. Her daughter Olive Oil basically begins to flap about and say that everything looks ugly. This of course doesn't really affect Popeye as he has no clue who she is or what importance she has to the village. He instead decides to mock her and said, "What does Olive Oil stand for? Are you some sort of lubricant?" To which she gets in a huff and leads him to his room. Upon walking in his room, she manages to fall over absolutely everything and crush everything in her path. She then walks out in a huff and Popeye is left to his own devices. That night at dinner, he soon learns that Olive Oil is to be a wife to someone known as the Commodore. We later learn that the story is that Olive Oil is supposed to be getting married to Brutus, who anyone who knows the Popeyes franchise knows that Brutus and Popeye always clash heads. However, on the night of their engagement party, Olive Oil decides to sneak out. Meanwhile, Popeye's already left due to the embarrassment of no one giving him the time of day. The pair of them bump into each other down by the shore, and one of Olive Oil's baskets gets switched with a baby. Olive Oil mistakenly assumes that the baby is a snake due to the fact that she can hear its rattle. Popeye eventually returns Olive Oil back to her engagement party, but when he arrives, Brutus is already very angry. Brutus then all he begins to see is red when he sees Popeye and Olive Oil standing there with the baby. He begins to assume that Popeye has done him dirty and that he has essentially broken up this engagement. Popeye tries to explain his circumstance, but of course Brutus doesn't want to listen and ends up kicking him halfway around the village. Popeye then retreats for a while until he knows it's safe. He begins to bring up the baby with Olive Oil for a little while, at least until they know its situation. Popeye also discusses with Olive Oil the fact that the only reason he came to the village in the first place is he's looking for his papa. But Popeye has always felt very lost, so he feels a bit cheated in life, that he has no one to essentially keep him in the right direction. Popeye and Olive Oil then begin to go through names for the child, to which he decides to call it Sweet Pea. Olive Oil gets annoyed at this and says that she doesn't believe it should be called that, so Popeye jokes and says, "What would you prefer it to be called, Baby Oil?" The pair then sit around the family for a while, and Popeye jokes that one of the family members is essentially the baby's new uncle. The individual takes this on the chin and decides to take the baby off for a while. However, little does Popeye realise is due to the mention from the previous boxing match that he had with a boxer, they now believe that the baby has the special ability to predict things. So the uncle decides to take little baby Sweet Pea off to the betting house, which of course annoys the hell out of Popeye as he believes that anything like that is bad no matter what way you put it. Olive Oil gets dragged into it and ends up soon being convinced to get the baby to bed. Popeye then begins to sing I Am Who I Am and takes baby Sweet Pea away. He then, due to the fact that thinking that Olive Oil is a bad influence along with the rest of the village, decides to take Sweet Pea away from the house. But this goes horribly wrong. After kicking a taxman into the river, Popeye finds himself in a position where he gets heralded by the whole town. Little does he realize that Brutus has been taking advantage of this situation so that he could kidnap baby Sweet Pea. When Popeye goes to catch up with Brutus about this after Olive Oil basically points out that she has found Popeye's father, Popeye manages to go down in the basement, but meanwhile Brutus comes out with the child and also steals away Olive Oil. After convincing his father that Popeye is his son, they finally go on a hunt to hunt down Brutus and save the child. It turns out that Brutus has taken the child and Olive Oil all the way over to a rock in the middle of nowhere to look for treasure. After discovering the treasure, he was basically going to abandon them and then try and flee. But due to the intervention of Popeye and his father, they managed to save Olive Oil, Sweet Pea, and managed to take the treasure away. Brutus makes one final mistake in this story by essentially filling Popeye's mouth with spinach, and this causes Popeye to increase in his powers. Popeye then does one final dance and the film ends. So, Popeye, what did I think of this film? Popeye the Sailor Man. It's a brilliant film, and I like the way that it's done, and I love the way that the singing works. The only thing I wasn't too big of a fan of is sometimes some of the back and forths. I feel like the interaction between Popeye, Olive Oil, and Brutus is brilliant. I also feel like the interaction between Popeye and his father is brilliant. However, a lot of the townspeople, I feel like they kind of just sit in the background for a lot of this film in general, and that kind of confuses me. I mean, the one townsperson who seems to get more limelight in this whole film than anyone is the taxman. And that also leads up to the point even when he gets hit down the ramp. So what would I give Popeye out of 10? Well, as I said, it's a solid story. I just wish that the background people had been doing a little bit more. And for that reason, I'm going to give it a solid 8 out of 10. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next film review. Until then, goodbye. Stay beautiful, you beautiful people.